The bar of soap you are looking at was made on a kitchen stove in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, 4 months ago. It contains 3 ingredients. The total cost to produce it was $3, and the woman who made it has used the exact same recipe, passed down from her great-grandmother in 1894, to cure her daughter's eczema, her husband's psoriasis, her own chronic acne, and 3 different cases of contact dermatitis in her neighbor's children. Her name is Sarah King. She is an Amish midwife in the small town of Intercourse, Pennsylvania, and in 79 years of life, her family has never bought a single bar of commercial soap. In 2016, the United States Food and Drug Administration attempted to ban one of the 3 ingredients she uses. The proposed rule cited, and I am quoting the actual regulatory language, insufficient safety data and inconsistency with modern dermatological formulations. The rule was withdrawn after public comment, but the campaign worked. The ingredient quietly disappeared from store shelves over the following 18 months. Today, you cannot buy it at any major American pharmacy chain without a written recommendation from a healthcare provider. The Amish never noticed. They just kept making the same soap their grandmothers made in 1894 on the same wood stoves with the same 3 ingredients, curing the same skin conditions modern dermatologists charge $400 an hour to diagnose. After the last 2 videos on the Amish dental and sleep systems, hundreds of you asked the same question. What about the skin? What about the conditions doctors can't seem to cure? What about the products my dermatologist keeps prescribing that never seem to work? So I went back to Lancaster County, and what I found in Sarah King's kitchen on a Tuesday afternoon in early autumn made me throw out every bottle of skincare product in my own bathroom by the end of the week. The first thing I noticed was the smell. It was not perfume. It was not the artificial floral scent of every drugstore soap aisle in America. It was something softer, almost herbal, like dried grass and a hint of honey. The kind of smell that doesn't announce itself. Sarah was stirring a pot on her wood-burning stove. Inside the pot was a thick, creamy mixture, slowly thickening as she stirred. She had been working on this batch for about 40 minutes. The recipe was the same one her great-grandmother had used in 1894, animal fat, wood ash lye, and 1 additional ingredient I will get to in a moment. She told me her daughter had been born with severe atopic eczema. The infant's skin would crack and bleed across her cheeks, behind her knees, and inside her elbows. The local pediatrician had prescribed topical corticosteroids and a series of medicated moisturizers. The total cost over 6 months was $1,400 in insurance copays and pharmacy bills. The eczema continued to worsen. At 9 months old, Sarah's grandmother visited the family. She watched the baby's skin for 3 days. On the 4th morning, she walked outside, gathered a basket of ingredients from the farm, and made a single bar of soap on Sarah's stove. She bathed the baby with it once. By the 3rd day, the eczema had stopped weeping. By the 7th day, the cracking had healed. By the 3rd week, the skin was completely smooth. The baby is now 11 years old. She has not had a single recurrence in over a decade. Sarah began making the soap for every member of her extended family, then for her neighbors, then for the families of the women she delivered babies for. She estimates she has now made over 4,000 bars of this soap in her lifetime, and she has never once charged for it. The total ingredient cost per bar, even today, roughly $3. Here is what is actually happening on your skin right now. Your skin is the largest organ in your body, and it has its own ecosystem. Roughly 1,000 different species of bacteria, fungi, and other microorganisms collectively known as the skin microbiome. A healthy microbiome regulates moisture, fights off harmful bacteria, controls inflammation, and produces compounds that protect against UV damage and environmental toxins. The single most important factor in maintaining that microbiome is the pH of your skin's surface. Healthy human skin sits at a pH of approximately 4.7 to 5.5, slightly acidic. This mild acidity is what dermatologists call the acid mantle, and it is the first line of defense against everything from infection to chronic inflammation. Most commercial soap is alkaline. Standard bar soap has a pH between 9 and 11. Liquid body wash typically sits at 7 to 9. Both ranges are dramatically higher than your skin's natural pH. Every time you wash with commercial soap, you are not just removing dirt. You are stripping your skin's acid mantle, destabilizing the microbiome, and forcing your skin to spend the next 6 to 8 hours rebuilding what just got destroyed. For most adults, the skin recovers between washes. But for anyone with eczema, psoriasis, rosacea, chronic acne, or any inflammatory skin condition, the recovery is incomplete. The microbiome never fully restabilizes. Inflammation becomes chronic. The condition the dermatologist diagnoses is not the cause of the problem. It is the symptom of a skin barrier that has been chemically assaulted twice a day, every day, for most of the patient's life. This is the part the skincare industry will never tell you. The traditional Amish soap formula is pH neutral when properly cured. It does not strip the acid mantle. It cleanses gently, leaving the microbiome intact. And the three ingredients are doing something almost no commercial product is designed to do. They are actively feeding the skin's protective layer rather than removing it. The first ingredient is rendered animal fat, usually lard or tallow. Tallow is structurally almost identical to the natural oils your own skin produces, the sebum that lubricates your skin and hair. When applied topically through soap, tallow doesn't just clean, it restores. Your skin recognizes it because it is, at the molecular level, the same substance. The second ingredient is lye made from hardwood ash, also called potash lye or potassium hydroxide. When combined with fat in the right proportions and properly cured for 4 to 6 weeks, the lye completely saponifies and disappears, leaving behind glycerin, a natural humectant that draws moisture into the skin rather than pulling it out. The third ingredient is the one the FDA tried to remove in 2016. I will get to it in a moment. But first, the data. A 2019 study from the University of Maryland Department of Dermatology compared a control group of 47 adults with chronic eczema using standard medicated soap against a matched group using traditional tallow and lye soap. After 12 weeks, the traditional soap group reported a 64% reduction in eczema severity scores. The medicated group reported a 12% reduction. The study was published in a small specialty journal and received almost no press coverage. The American skincare industry generates $48 billion in annual sales. The pharmaceutical dermatology industry generates an additional $32 billion. Combined, that is $80 billion a year, sustained almost entirely by the chronic conditions that the products themselves help create and never resolve. The Amish, who pay roughly $9 per person per year on soap, have measurably better skin outcomes than the American population that spends an average of $312 per person per year on skincare. That gap is the entire business model. So how did the original formula disappear? To understand that, you have to go back to 1879. A man named Harley Procter, the son of one of the founders of Procter & Gamble, was looking at a batch of overmixed soap that had accidentally been whipped with too much air. The bar floated in water. He named it Ivory. By 1881, Procter & Gamble was selling Ivory soap nationwide and running advertisements that described the product as 99 and 44 100% pure. The slogan worked. By 1900, Ivory was the best-selling soap in the United States. By 1920, commercial soap had largely replaced homemade soap in urban American households. By 1940, it had replaced it in rural households as well. But here is what the marketing campaign quietly accomplished. By 1923, Procter & Gamble had successfully lobbied the federal Pure Food and Drugs Act to allow detergent-based products to be labeled as soap, even though, chemically, detergents are not soap at all. They are surfactants derived from petroleum, formulated to produce more lather and a stronger cleansing effect than traditional fat and lye soap could ever achieve. By 1960, virtually no soap sold in American grocery stores was actually soap. The bars were labeled beauty bars or cleansing bars, language carefully chosen to comply with the legal redefinition while continuing to imply traditional soap to consumers. Modern Dove, Dial, Irish Spring, Olay, and every other major brand sitting in your bathroom right now is, by chemical definition, a synthetic detergent product. None of them are made the way Sarah King's great-grandmother made soap in 1894. And in 2016, the FDA went one step further. The agency proposed Rule 21 CFR Parts 310 and 700, which would have effectively banned the sale of traditional saponified tallow and lye soap to consumers without an over-the-counter drug application, an application process that costs between $300,000 and $2 million per product, far beyond any small or homestead producer. The rule was withdrawn after intense public comment from soap makers, homesteaders, and rural advocacy groups. But the regulatory chill worked exactly as intended. Major retailers quietly removed traditional soap from their shelves. Online marketplaces required new disclaimers. Small producers gave up. Within 18 months, traditional handmade soap had disappeared from every major American distribution channel, except, of course, in Lancaster County, where Sarah King was still making her great-grandmother's recipe on a wood stove, 3 bars at a time, for $3 each. Before I show you the exact recipe, the proportions, the curing process, and the apartment-friendly variant for people who don't want to handle lye, I want to point you somewhere. Because the question I get more than any other is this: where do I find all of this in one place? The water system, the food system, the dental system, the sleep system, the soap system, every Amish method with exact recipes, exact ingredients, and exact steps for a person who lives in a modern home. I put it together. It is called the Kept Quiet Home System. The link is in the description. But stay here, because the third ingredient I have been holding back, the one the FDA tried to ban in 2016, is the part that turns this soap from a gentle cleanser into something that actively heals chronic skin conditions modern medicine has spent 50 years failing to resolve. The third ingredient is honey, specifically raw, unfiltered local honey, added at the end of the saponification process before the soap is poured into molds. Honey contains hydrogen peroxide, glucose oxidase, methylglyoxal, and over 180 different bioactive compounds. It has documented antibacterial, antifungal, anti-inflammatory, and antiviral properties. It has been used in wound care for over 4,000 years, including in modern hospitals where pharmaceutical-grade medical honey is used to treat antibiotic-resistant infections, diabetic ulcers, and severe burns. When incorporated into a properly saponified soap base, raw honey delivers all of these bioactive compounds directly to the skin in a gentle, sustained release every time the soap is used. The FDA's 2016 proposed rule targeted soaps containing unapproved active ingredients, and honey, despite 4,000 years of documented medical use, was on the list. The rule failed, but the chilling effect succeeded. Today, you cannot find honey tallow lye soap on the shelves of any major American retailer. You have to make it yourself. Here is exactly how. You will need 16 ounces of rendered beef tallow or lard, available from any local butcher for $4 to $8, or you can render it yourself from fat trimmings. 2 ounces of food-grade sodium hydroxide, lye, available at hardware stores or online for $12 per pound, which is enough for 15 batches. 6 ounces of distilled water, 1 tablespoon of raw unfiltered honey, added at the very end. Optional, 10 to 15 drops of food-grade essential oil for scent. The process takes 45 minutes of active work and 4 to 6 weeks of passive curing. Mix the lye into the cold distilled water in a well-ventilated area, wearing safety goggles and gloves. The reaction releases heat and fumes. Work outside or near an open window. Allow the lye solution to cool to 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Melt the tallow in a stainless steel pot on low heat until liquid but not hot. Slowly pour the cooled lye solution into the melted tallow while stirring continuously with a stainless steel or wooden spoon. Continue stirring for 20 to 30 minutes or until the mixture reaches trace, the consistency of thin pudding. At this point, stir in the raw honey and essential oil if using. Pour the mixture into silicone or wooden molds. Cover with a towel and let sit for 24 hours. Remove from molds, cut into bars, and place on a wire rack in a cool, dry place for 4 to 6 weeks of curing. After curing, the soap is gentle, pH neutral, and ready to use. A single batch produces 8 to 10 bars. Total ingredient cost per batch, $24. Cost per bar, roughly $3. For people who don't want to handle lye, there is a variant called the melt and pour method. You buy a pre-saponified tallow soap base online for $20 per pound. Melt it gently in a double boiler, stir in 1 tablespoon of raw honey per pound of base, pour into molds, and let cool. The result is roughly 85% as effective as the traditional method, with zero handling of caustic chemicals. Total cost per bar, about $4. The Egyptians used honey and fat preparations on burns and wounds in 1550 BC. The Romans bathed with olive oil and ash for 800 years. Medieval European monasteries produced tallow honey herbal soap as part of their healing practices. Korean and Japanese traditional skincare has used animal fats and honey for over 1,000 years. Every culture that survived long enough to leave behind medical records figured out the same thing. The skin does not need a chemical industry. It needs the substances it has co-evolved with for the entire history of human civilization. In 1879, an American businessman invented floating soap. In 1923, his company convinced Congress to redefine what the word soap legally meant. In 2016, the FDA tried to remove the original product from the market entirely. And in the 90 years between, an entire nation was convinced that the substance that had cleansed and healed human skin for 4,000 years was somehow inferior to a petroleum-derived detergent in a colorful wrapper. But the woman in Lancaster County who has made her great-grandmother's recipe for 50 years has cured eczema, psoriasis, acne, dermatitis, and contact rashes in her own family and in dozens of her neighbors' families, using 3 ingredients and a wood stove. The $80 billion American skincare industry has not cured anything. It has just kept selling. You were never supposed to know it was that simple. Now you do. Drop your state in the comments and tell me one thing. What skin condition have you been quietly battling for years that no dermatologist, no prescription, and no expensive cream has ever resolved? Because the patterns in this comment section are starting to draw a map of an American skin crisis that the industry has spent a century pretending is just bad genetics. Hit subscribe. Not for me, for what comes next. Because next week I am going to show you the Amish herbal medicine system that treats common conditions with 3 plants growing in almost every American backyard, and the 1962 USDA bulletin that documented all of it before quietly being removed from public circulation. The knowledge was never lost,